Yeah, we're gonna call the meeting to order.
One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call. Amy, no. Mike, yes. Kazai? Here. Jason? Here. Present. Leo? Here. Joe? Present. Got us all. Everybody got a copy of the agenda? Need an approval of it?
Yes.
The motion that we approve the agenda as it is. I second.
Done. Approval of the minutes from the last meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say it again. Done. Reports and presentations, chairperson, nothing. Village manager,
In your packet, you will find that I have attached the code enforcement report, year-to-date activity. The data from the first couple of weeks of the Isabella County Sheriff's Patrol. A list of zoning permits that have been issued year-to-date. Last night, the ZBA had their first variance case. It was in regards to an accessory structure, category 3 in an LR3 district. They did approve it. The Lake Committee met this morning and they are reevaluating their plan moving forward with the projects that they have laid out for the community when they voted on the millage. We are currently looking to do Peninsula and we're looking to see how that's going to look moving forward. RFPs went out for the 2026-2027 crack ceiling project. Those will be determined next Tuesday at council. And we're working with Roe to get an RFP out for a couple of chip and seal projects that we're doing this year. And that's all I have.
village council. The MMDC representative.
Wow.
Who's on? Who's on? Get the spotlights.
Should I stand so you guys can see me? Hi, my name is Allison Heinrich. I'm with Middle Michigan Development Corporation, MMDC. We are the economic development agency for Clare, Isabella, and Osceola counties. My specific role, I get to focus on meeting with our manufacturers throughout all 3 counties and make sure that they have what they need in order to stay here, grow, and then I also get to market our area and help to attract other manufacturers and businesses coming to Michigan. One of the biggest concerns that we have when I'm meeting with my companies is labor, workforce, and then needing housing and childcare. And so in the last 5 years, really, MMDC has pivoted and been focusing more on those, especially housing in the last year. My previous experience for a few years before I started with Middle Michigan was with leasing management in Mount Pleasant, and I saw a lot of housing issues in that role and the lack of maintenance with landlords, even though you're sitting there and begging and pleading for them to keep their units up to date, make sure that they're affordable, but not costing them exorbitant. With that, we have been working with Leeson Vandenbrink for a year now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I know.
To help us educate our communities more on the brownfield housing tip that is available through our state. Typically, people hear the word brownfield and they think that it's a contaminated site. It is the same act, but we now have what's called the Housing Tax Increment Finance Plan. And I will let Sam share a lot more about that than what I will. But it's been a great tool that a lot of developers that we're connecting with for housing are looking to utilize. It's helping to make those projects pencil, because when you're looking at housing projects now, $250 a square foot is not your average. That's very, very low for most developers, especially for smaller, if you're doing 1 or 2 buildings at it. And so this is a feasible way for us to help spark some further development and be able to help get our population that we currently have into better housing that still works for them. And then also being able to attract more population to our area. So we also have Brooke Hovenkamp. She is a CDUM fellow with us, and we have her for a little over a year now. Her remaining, right? And so she's been helping a lot with this as well. So yes.
On the housing front, we've recently launched Central Michigan Housing Coalition, which Jessica's been participating in. And so we're trying to tackle the housing shortage together with a lot of our municipal partners, nonprofits, and other agencies in the area. We have about 14 participating in that coalition. And just to, give some context, I know many in this room are familiar with the housing challenges that the region and the state at large are facing. But within Region G, which Isabella County is a part of, Isabella County has a housing shortage of about 4,600 units between now and 2029. And so that's really what we're trying to tackle in terms of our coalition is looking at creative ways where we can increase housing supply in units, working with our municipalities on how we can streamline the development process and changes that communities are making to help make housing production easier in all of our counties. So.
Do you want to go now or during the housing discussion?
Probably let's do the tip now and then they can,
Okay.
if you want to interject with a couple of
Perfect.
Irish for certain things.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. I am Sam Marius with Police and Vandenbrink. We are contracted with Middle Michigan Development Corporation to help communities that have brownfield redevelopment authorities as well as the county to understand how this tool can be utilized to address our significant housing shortage. I want to go back a little bit. So the legislation was passed in 1996 and it's called Michigan Public Act 381, brownfield legislation. And it was originally passed to address some of our legacy contamination concerns associated with the retooling and upskilling of our automotive industry that was leaving Lansing communities. It was really structured initially just to address contamination. And so that includes DEQ, which is now EGLE, to remediate, clean up those sites and make them ready for redevelopment. And then it was a successful tool. So in the 2000s, the Michigan Economic Development Corporation got involved in this legislation and expanded brownfield to include properties that are blighted, functionally obsolete, tax reverted, municipally owned, land bank owned, and some transit oriented properties. So that expanded brownfield to include non-environmental eligible activities to help level the playing field associated with addressing some of these concerns in our infill projects. And then in 2022, the legislators took a deep dive into Michigan's housing shortage and discovered that we are short 155,000 housing units across the state. And instead of creating a new piece of legislation, they said, brownfield is working, let's add housing development as an eligible property qualifier in this piece of legislation. If I had a magic wand or a genie, I would go back and be like, please change the name, because many people hear brownfield and think that a property is contaminated, and that is no longer the case. The property does not need to be contaminated to qualify to utilize this incentive. And really, as Allison mentioned, the cost to construct housing is exponential right now. In the last 10 years, we have seen housing costs rise 30%, with just 20% of that occurring since COVID alone. I know we all want to think COVID was a really long time ago. But what happens in that case is that's not just the cost of the house, that is the cost of everything that it takes to construct that house. So that then gets passed off to the consumer. So we've now taken homes that would have been $200,000 and made them $400,000 or $500,000. And that is not something many of our markets in the state of Michigan can absorb easily. So this housing tool is designed to reduce those barriers to housing by providing an incentive on the back end to complete the project. So I've given you a little housing TIF fact sheet that goes through myths and facts, but really it is a very risk adverse incentive program because no municipality or county is outlaying any funds to complete these projects. It is on the developer to complete the project as presented. And by way of having a brownfield plan approved, we look at, does the property qualify? And do the activities qualify? So the cost of the construction does not get reimbursed to the developer. We're only looking at infrastructure, site prep, really things that occur underground, not that vertical construction, because the underground is necessary to be able to start that vertical construction. So the developer is the one responsible for putting in that infrastructure up to our standards and completing the project as presented. And I mentioned municipally owned or land bank owned properties. Those are ideal to utilize this incentive because right now they are serving, no purposes rather than sending somebody out there likely to go mow those lawns, right? They're not earning any tax dollars for your community to run. However, once we put a house on that, the tax base will increase. And how TIF works is the developer is able to capture a portion of those tax dollars to be reimbursed for eligible activities that have been identified in a brownfield plan. So it's not an automatic reimbursement. We have to have the brownfield plan that is approved by the BRA and then by the council through a public hearing process. And then the developer has to complete the project and the taxes have to increase. But it's not an automatic even after that, right? So they say they do everything that they're supposed to do. They still have to submit to that BRA what's called a reimbursement request. And that's a thick packet that I go through with my magnifying glass and say, do I have all of your invoices? Do I have all of your proof of payment? Do I have all of your contracts? Was all of this work done up to our standards? And at such time that, I can certify those costs and make sure that we have all of the appropriate documentation that we need. Then I go back to the BRA and I say, out of the $1 million of expenditures that are brownfield eligible, I can only substantiate 700,000 of those. So that then certifies that amount to be reimbursed with future taxes. So they have to create the value and substantiate that value in order to be reimbursed over time. These can exist for up to 30 years. With housing TIF, I've really been seeing them fall between 20 and 25 years of reimbursement. And if the property value is higher than we anticipate in the plan, it'll be paid off quicker. And conversely, if that, takes a little bit longer, the plan may extend longer. But, my role as the consultant is to make sure that you have a seat at the table as any of these projects come forward, that if there are future infrastructure projects that you may need to look at because of a housing increase in the area, we can look at potentially including some future projects in that increment. That way you have a mechanism to repay yourselves in the future for projects that, may be on your capital improvement plan, but not for the next, 10 years. But it gives you a revenue stream in the future to pay for that. Threw a lot of information at you, and I'll be here to answer any questions that you have. It's a really fun tool. I thoroughly enjoy brownfield because you get to be as creative or not creative as you want, right? When we talk about putting all the risk on the developer, absolutely. But if you want to look at, road resurfacing, whatever that may be, how can we be creative within this legislation to make sure that you are able to get what you need and have a mechanism to pay for that in the future?
So does the infrastructure cover new roads, sidewalks, utilities?
Landscaping, utilities,
And
yep,
that, all the rest of that natural gas, all that stuff.
Yes.
You're talking about that.
correct.
Basically, everything that's underground.
Yes.
So, okay.
Underground or surface level, yep.
Okay.
I've had communities. So when I talk about infrastructure and the community being party kind of to that future TIF, I'll give you a couple examples that kind of help paint a picture as to what I mean or what that can mean. The city of Zeeland was looking to expand their snow melt system in front of one of their buildings that happened to have a brownfield plan in it. but they had a $600,000 cost associated with a boiler system to expand that. So we included that boiler system as an eligible expense in that brownfield plan, and the city is using increment to repay itself for that cost of that snow melt system. I had another community who was looking at a water tower upgrade because of a new housing development coming in. Offsite infrastructure improvements that can support, that are due to supporting the housing development can be included. So when we were looking at, all right, we may be moving in, you know, a couple dozen residents in this community that hasn't seen growth in decades, we're gonna need to take a look at some water tower upgrades. So we wanted to make sure that that was included, in there. And then another one I just did is, I think it was Zealand again. They were looking at, they had a large, manufacturing facility relocating to their area. And they didn't have any road upgrades that were going to be necessary at this time, but MDOT had kind of put a bug in their ear saying, hey, we're looking at this intersection, and just so you know, we may want to come to you with a roundabout design in 10 years. So we knew that there's likely going to be in 10 years a city cost associated with that. So we decided, you know what, even if we don't use that, let's put that in the plan right now. That way, anybody who looks at this brownfield plan a decade from now can say, this was something that the community contemplated at this time. So they can use the revenue stream generated from the taxes on that industrial plant to fund their road project decades into the future.
Would that also include any costs for rezoning and stuff like that? That might be up to the municipality.
Typically, no, brownfield really, so we have you as the planning commission, right, where all of your plans are gonna come forward. And the brownfield piece can fall into, you know, either before site plan approval or after site plan approval. Previously, it used to be, we're always seeing plans going for site plan approval and then using incentives. I've seen a shift in that in recent years, and the reason for that being is because the lending market has changed, right? Lenders are a lot more stringent with their requirements, and what having your brownfield plan does is that gives the banks a little bit more credibility to say, yep, we know that there's a future revenue stream. We know that the community is supportive of this project through their support of a brownfield plan. And then that authorizes kind of a release of funds for them to continue moving forward with their construction and their architecture drawings. But, you know, brownfield, we just make sure that the zoning meets what is in your master plan or what you know, want for your community.
But overall, the brownfield can handle both commercial and
Correct, yeah.
residential, so not one or the other.
Not one or the other, no.
Brownfield to me was always commercial in my
Used to
mind,
be, yeah,
both of it, but.
for sure. So long as it meets one of those, you know, 6 or so eligible property criteria, doesn't matter what the zoning is, so long as it's eligible under the statute.
Thank you.
Of course.
Somebody else? Sorry, I didn't mean to hog it all. Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming tonight and giving us this information. I'm sure it'll take us a little time to digest it. We'll have lots of questions going forward.
Happy to answer them.
We really appreciate your time.
Of course.
No, we don't have any public hearings, so I don't have any public comment on the hearing, right?
Nope, the next one is for public comments, regular.
These are regular public.
Anything they want to talk about?
Okay. So we'll go back, because we've got on housing discussion, so we'll go back one to the public comment. Remember that you need to stand up, let us know who you are and what your address is. And please keep your comments to 3 minutes. So any public comments?
Is this just for housing or?
Nope.
No, it's just for everything.
Anything you want.
Good evening, my name is Mike Holcomb, 1023 Pyrenees Drive. We submitted a letter earlier today to Jessica and the clerk to be read into the record, but Gina and I are just going to summarize the actual letter. Everybody probably up there has a copy, most everybody back here has a copy of the letter itself. So we're just gonna go through the points of it. Firstly, we're taking a risk in our this is about the data centers. Okay. First, you're actively taking a risk in our residential groundwater table, section 5. in the ordinance there, completely wipes out all protective language discouraging high volume water consumption. You're leaving our private residential shallow wells completely unprotected against depletion while allowing developers to extract groundwater based on subjective empty promises. We request an ironclad absolute ban on all groundwater extraction. Secondly, threatening the electrical grid in our wallet. Section 5 fails to protect taxpayers from the financial fallout of hyperdense power usage. This ordinance contains zero guarantees blocking developers from offloading grid connection costs onto our utility bills. We request an explicit ordinance stating that there shall be zero surcharges placed on existing residential customers to connect or subsidize these facilities alongside a strict 5 megawatt power usage cap to stop localized brownouts. Third, we're ignoring emergency response and public safety funding. While Section 5 mentions a basic fire protection plan, it doesn't say anything about funding for specialized equipment or training to handle extreme data center hazards, such as high temperature battery thermal runaway. Our local contracted fire department must not be forced to take on this massive technological risk. Take on these massive technological risks at public expense. We request the ordinance mandate dedicated annual public safety funding paid entirely by the developer for specialized hazmat training and equipment. Board, you are inviting a continuous industrial noise nightmare into a peaceful lake community. We have the 55 decibel limit on any property line and 45 dBA put in for any residential property line. But it ignores the low frequency sound waves. Peer reviewed engineering data from Institute of Noise Control Engineering and ASA, the Acoustical Society of America, proves that this deep bass-like hum passes effortlessly through residential drywall, causes vibration in those houses, and travels unimpeded for up to 2 miles over open water and land. We request 2-mile barrier from any residential, airport residential, or RLI area.
Good evening, I would just continue with it. I'm Gina Holcomb, 1023 Heritage Drive. Fifth, this ordinance is packed with massive corporate loopholes. Section 2 allows a 10,000 square foot industrial retail footprint reclassified as a small scale designation. That is the size of a commercial box store like a Dollar General. We request that the current draft 10,000 square foot cap be amended to read 1,200 square feet, which is the typical size of a local modest ranch home. This will keep with the character of our small community. Furthermore, Section 3 completely fails to stop the developer from buying up adjacent parcels like the village owns lots on Drew Road and legally combining them to bypass the 5-acre boundary rules. Even though these are currently zoned residential, they can be easily changed to industrial by majority vote of the council. Also, the draft does not address at all the village-owned Cal Brewer Airport land, leaving a massive loophole for a developer to use a private airport sublease to bypass residential setbacks entirely. Regarding Section 6, referring low frequency sound limits, we request an iron 60 dBc low frequency cap, which is not the same as a dBA level, enforced by mandatory unexpected quarterly testing at the operator's sole expense, backed by an automatic 5,000 daily penalty and immediate operational shutdown for any breaches. The current draft simply reads, if the operation produces a steady, pure, low hum, frequency hum, whine, or other tonal perceptible beyond the property line, the commission may require an acoustical study. This is entirely way to date. Because these multi-system infrastructure risks remain completely unaddressed as residents of Lake Isabella, we request respectfully that the planning commission table this developer-friendly draft immediately and impose a formal binding 365-day administrative temporary pause to fully evaluate these liabilities. Thank you.
Police 4/1266 on House Drive. I read through this, I agree with all of it. But especially I'm concerned about the noise. I have heard of other residents of Michigan who do live next to AI facility. And I mean, you could see in their video, the low hum that they're like, they can't even sit on their porches, they can't leave their windows open this summer. It totally ruins their at home time, so. That's a huge concern. We love living here. We've been here for 4 years. We would consider moving if something like this were to.
Hi, my name is Charles Osmer second. I live on 1032 Portage Drive, and I agree with like everything that's been said already. I also as somebody who's like in environmental studies at Central Michigan and wanted to go into environmental economics, I believe that you know what we should be concerned about data centers, since they do cause like consequences with the environment, like drain you know, runoff, and also like just drain the water in general. That's, you know, not very good. I was also thinking too, like, you know, I have concerns about like, you know, if like, you know, data centers built like where the jobs going to come from. I feel like if there is going to be a data center here, and I mean, I hope there isn't, but if there is, like, there should be like, you know, a good large portion of jobs like you know, from like the community itself and not outside the community, since like, you know, it's, I feel like as something that kind of is being used by people possibly like, who knows where, like it would always, you know, benefit us that way, or like maybe, if possible, like make it, have some very great, or like, the, you know, bill and basically gets a, portion of the profits that, since, you know, I believe that as something that's being used outside the community, like we kind of serve like access to some sort of benefits.
My name's James Moore, 1266 Clubhouse Drive. And I want to thank you too for putting this together. I think in the last page there, furthermore, in one, maybe you could add language there, it needs to include that a ballot proposal would be required for rezoning business areas. So I did a bunch of military service and worked with radios and frequencies, and this could be, but I'm sure there's stuff that we don't even know about, that these data centers are generating frequencies that are probably very harmful, most likely. We moved back from Alaska and we've living in Mount Pleasant, the city of Mount Pleasant, behind Doozies. We moved here because we don't want to become a city. That's another thing I want to mention. You know, there's been talk of trying to make Lake Isabella a city. I think it's totally unnecessary. We moved here because we like the environment. We like how Lake Isabella is now. Don't want to see more manufacturing come in. I think there's other ways maybe to look at it, but I totally thank you guys for putting this together, and I think that any zoning should actually be posted by the people, since it impacts people so powerfully. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service to our families and to all.
Any others? Okay. So
Yeah,
point,
one more thing, if I could, sir. This has to do with just listening to these guys talk up here. I don't see anything about sir, gonna be public comments on the housing after.
There'll be a second public comment at the end of.
Okay, I'll wait.
okay, so now we'll go down, we did the housing. So we'll slip down to the proposed ordinance.
No, this, now we're doing housing.
No, we did.
No, this is our first public hearing now we're at.
Okay. I'm glad I'm up to speed. Okay, we're on housing now.
So at last month's meeting, we
Correct.
started talking about the housing discussion and our zoning ordinance. And you had asked me to bring back some data and to start out with just one of the proposed changes that we were looking at possibly making. And this goes kind of hand in hand with our brownfield development that we want to start pursuing. And what our housing study, our housing market study had said Lake Isabella is lacking. So as identified in the village's housing action plan, the planning commission is beginning to review the minimum dwelling size requirements as the first step in implementing the housing recommendations contained in the village's adopted planning documents. This meeting is intended to begin a policy discussion. We shouldn't be making a decision tonight. So the current minimum dwelling size requirements, as discussed at last meetings, were established to promote quality development and preserve neighborhood character. As housing costs have continued to rise, the village needed to evaluate opportunities to expand attainable housing, and the planning commission has requested a review of whether these standards continue to meet the community's needs while remaining consistent with the village's master plan and the housing action plan. When we looked at it, we started looking at our LR1 backlots. Should they have a minimum dwelling size be the 1,200 square feet that it currently is, or should we reduce it to 1,000 square feet or potentially less? The minimum ground floor area, if the total minimum dwelling size is reduced, should a separate minimum ground floor area requirement continue to be required, or should it match the total minimum dwelling requirement?
Can I ask a quick question before you go? Are you including garage square footage in? part of
Right
that?
now, we are only, no, it's not included.
Okay.
Your footprint of your home for the LR1 size is 1,200 square feet for the back lots with 1,000 square feet minimum on your ground floor,
Not including garage.
not including the garage.
Sorry, go ahead.
If we're looking at the back lots, do we want to look at the waterfront lots? And in the LR2 district, should the village evaluate whether the district is appropriate for smaller homes, cottage homes, or any future tiny homes? When you're reviewing the minimum dwelling size requirements and look at this, what supports the several goals identified in the village's adopted planning documents, we should evaluate potential regulatory barriers to attainable housing. We should encourage reinvestment and development on existing vacant residential lots. We should expand the housing choices for first-time home buyers, retirees, and smaller households, all while maintaining neighborhood character while evaluating whether existing standards remain appropriate. So attached, you'll see the housing action plan implementation matrix. So this kind of goes through what our high priorities should be, medium, and then long-term, and our target completion date. You could review that, make any changes, and at our next planning commission meeting, we can discuss if we want to rearrange this matrix. High on the list was the minimum dwelling size review, followed by the garage and breezeway regulations, followed by development opportunity inventory, the MMDC residential development opportunities. Moving into the medium category are accessory dwelling units, which are houses above garages, duplex housing, age-friendly housing, cottage housing, builder and developer roundtable housing. And then long-term is the land-based development opportunities, our annual housing report, and updating this plan. The next in there is the minimum dwelling size evaluation. It goes through each of our zoning districts and what their minimum dwelling sizes are. And there's also a map that you can review. And the following few pages after that are questions that we need to be asking ourselves in regards to when we make any changes to our zoning ordinance in regards to the dwelling sizes. At the very end, it tells you how any of these changes would support the housing study that we had done a couple of years ago. And I also put in there a tiny home size reference, since that is a huge question that we get asked in the office a lot, is if tiny homes are allowed. A tiny home is actually considered under 400 square feet. A micro home is 400 to 600 square feet. A smaller home is 600 to 900 square feet, and a cottage is 9 to 1,200 square feet, just for your reference.
Size of the shed.
So again, what I would like to see happen is I would like us to all review the attached minimum dwelling size matrix and zoning map. And then I'd like you to go through the questions that I attached in this packet and apply it to the minimum dwelling size. And then come back next month with recommendations on whether or not we need to lower it and maybe some sizes that you're looking at, or if we want to stay the same and why. You guys have any questions?
Like the time frame spread that you have on the second page there. When I was looking at it, it's like it takes us all the way out to 2028,
Yes.
you know, in some cases on that too, so, I like the way you broke it up because then we can be more definitive on each section of it without being pushed to do everything at once. I definitely think the minimum size thing is a good one to start with. I know I've seen quite a few videos on the internet of smaller houses now that are literally under 1,000 square foot. And those, to me, in my mind, if I think about where I'd want them here in the village area, I would focus on the smaller lots. You know, because those smaller lots are gonna be the ones that can be able to handle a smaller building like that. So the LR2 area would be a perfect example. To where I could see us helping upgrade that area from the current homes that are there now. And promoting our zoning and stuff like that to make it more available for smaller single person homes or 2-person homes, starter homes, if you want to look at it that way too, but. I don't think I personally don't want to see our minimum square footage go down too much more. I'm already happy with what it's at now, but obviously I'm open to conversation that way too. So I think we're starting out in the right direction where we want to go.
Other comments on it? So we got some homework.
Yeah, and another reason, I asked them here tonight was because we were starting with this, and it goes kind of hand in hand with what we're doing. So is there anything you would like to add or
Yeah.
recommend?
No, I looked at the proposed changes and really they're insignificant, but they are significant, right? Thinking about the attainability of housing or. God forbid, somebody's house burns down and then the market conditions have changed so much that they only get so much for their house, but they have to build a 1,200 square foot house when. Really, they can only afford 1,000 to rebuild. So that's one of the arguments I've seen. It's just like, this is a trend in a lot of communities. Of scaling that number back a bit because it just creates additional mobility throughout your housing market. So I was really happy to see this on the agenda, actually, and the way it's framed out is done very well.
I definitely think we need areas to be able to support smaller houses like that or
Yeah.
first-time buyers houses. But I can also say the last thing I want to see is a tiny house or a micro house on the lakefront. Sorry, that
Yeah.
just doesn't match.
Yeah,
You know, even if it's a brand new lot that had never been built on, it just harmoniously doesn't match.
Doesn't match.
Around it.
character is important, so that's exactly
So-
what this is doing, is
Yeah.
it is adjusting to these times and still preserving the character because it goes in alliance with the current lot sizes and zoning districts throughout Lake Isabella.
Right, because I mean, some of the smaller lots we have barely fit a mobile home and
Right,
an external detached garage in there, so. Those lots aren't gonna grow in any kind of size whatsoever, so let's focus. What's best to fit on those areas and make sure that our minimum square footage or whatever. Works in, conjunction with that to say, okay, we don't require a 1,500 square foot house. On a small little lot like that, it's not gonna work,
exactly,
so, okay.
exactly.
Do you have any regulations on square footage for your?
On brownfield, nope, so in the brownfield plan, if somebody's seeking that as an incentive, we do ask them to identify. Housing types, square footages of each, if it's rental, we wanna see what the target, like area median incomes are for those that are. Or maybe income restricted, and what those price points may be, but there's no restrictions when it comes to. Square footage, I will say I have never in the last decade done a deal that has to deal with any tiny houses. Any small houses, I have seen some like prefab. Like mobile homes, but they're all kind of brought in where they are modular, not mobile, if you will. I have seen some projects like that in very rural communities, but I haven't seen any teeny house deals, but. No stipulations, right, and that's why it gets to fit with exactly what you need, where if a plan were to be in the area that had, 1,000 or 1,200 square foot minimums, the plan would still, and each house would still have to adhere to your planning and zoning standards.
Okay. Good, thank you very much. Okay, moving on, next is the proposed ordinance 2026-04 data center regulation. This item was continued from our July meeting and up for additional review and revisions. Jessica, at this time, will you take us through the update?
Yes, so at the July Planning Commission meeting, we held the public hearing. Following that meeting, I took public comments from the residents. I also consulted with the village attorney as directed, and we came up with the proposed language, which is attached. We expanded the definitions to provide greater clarity. We strengthened the special.
Are. Those such things as the sound emanating, low volume sound emanating, we have things set up in here now that at the property line of such a data center or whatever, that they cannot exceed beyond that property line with that low kind of stuff, the low ground volume, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of the stuff I think that I heard from you guys is covered in this update here, that I would encourage you guys to read over some of that.
Is that the one that was on the meeting agenda underneath there down at the bottom? The revised portion there? Yeah, we looked through that entire thing, as we said in that letter right there. And there's still so many things that didn't get addressed, and there's so many things that if people are gonna put a data center in there, that they need to fund them.
Okay, we got it. We got your comments from earlier. We really appreciate it. We're kind of in
Ask
our
me a question.
discussion mode here, and then we'll have comments more afterwards. Got anything else you want to review on it?
I went through this whole adoption here of request that you would put together for doing this. And I think we've covered most of it, if not all of the items that we talked about last month, so I'm actually much more comfortable with the way this ordinance is written now. It maybe doesn't solve 100% of the problems right now, but I think it's a great start to get done here. And I think it's something that we could look forward to forwarding to the council for them to review and get back to us if they like that or not. But for me, I'd still like to push this part through for a timing aspect, that right now we have literally nothing in place. So if we can get this through to the council, they still have to have their public hearings and stuff like that as well too. So we're talking October, November, somewhere in there, if everything went as flowing, that we could have something in place. And that doesn't mean that once that's done and in place, that you can't come back and review some stuff again as well. It's like, say something pointed out or something comes up that we haven't thought about, doesn't mean you can't come back and amend, a current ordinance and stuff like that too. So I would encourage that we try to get something in place, even if it's not 100% perfect, as soon as possible. Protect ourselves as soon as possible. And then if we need to come back later on and we get some more, we can do that.
So we got two things on this: postpone consideration and bring it up at our next meeting, or recommend proposed ordinance to the village council. And they'll look at it, and I'll have their discussions, and I'll have their public comments, and
There's still,
and so on and so on.
still another public hearing, right? Yes.
Council side, yeah.
Council side, yep.
They're the ones that have to vote on it. All we can do is put this together, present it to them. And they can either send it back to us and say, no, we want more stuff on it, or allow.
Like I say, there will be a discussion with them, public comments, public hearing with them too.
Yeah.
And they're the decision.
They're the ones that vote. So they're the elected people, so. So I would like to get this rolling down the road now instead of postponing anything, so.
Can somebody make a motion to recommend the proposal to the village council?
I'll make that motion.
Second it? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Done. Okay,
I would like to also encourage you guys to go outside of the village and go to Isabel County, to townships. and just try to get in and discuss your concern. Because I'm all for you. But at the same time, I mean, they could literally be right outside the village limits and there's nothing we can do about it. As long as you all are aware of that.
Just for clarification too, that both Broomfield Township and Sherman Township do not have planning commissions, they do not have ordinances in place, all of that is done by the county. So and I encourage you guys to go to the township meetings, you'll learn a lot of stuff there, but it's totally out of their hands. They have no say over it, I mean,
But you could go to the county.
yeah, you can go to the county, the county is the one that does all the planning commission for both of the townships that we live in. So. When I was on Sherman Township, I tried to get them to form a planning commission and do all that stuff as well too, but
When
their
you're,
complaint was it was too much money and.
when you're looking at the footprint they need. And Lake Isabella, which we're trying to cover that. I see it more important with the footprints that are all over Isabella County. Rather than Lake Isabella. Not saying that there's a scare there, but in Lake Isabella, and we're trying to do our best to get something in place. But your main concern, I would think you also need to go to Isabella. Yeah.
Or you did? No,
No, you can't do a voice for you, we have a roll call or something.
oh, all right, roll call, vote.
So if you want,
We're coming to some hearing.
whoever made the motion. Whoever made the motion,
Your,
right,
your vote,
pardon?
yeah, I'll call the names.
Okay,
Jeff,
yes.
Prasad,
Yes.
Jason,
Yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mike, yes, Amy's not present.
So from here to go to the council. For their next month, well, yeah, next month meeting, right? It won't make next week's meeting. Pardon me? It will make next week, next Tuesday, council will be here. Hang on, we have to wait till your next public comment.
No, they can't.
Talking, I got your. I'm working on trying to get this working. Sorry, I'm used to talking loud, maybe it wasn't loud enough,
It's a
but
puppet show.
next Tuesday, council meets here at 7 o'clock, and they will have this on their agenda. So.
I haven't heard any comments.
I'm trying to work with Jessica and these guys. We have speakers in the ceilings right now. They don't work.
It's
But we
all
can try to get some microphones here so that the speakers will pick our voices up
Thank you.
and do it. But I got 2 hearing aids, so I'm in the same boat as you guys when I'm sitting out
I
there.
think I need some.
Sorry.
Maybe that would help.
Yeah. It's the
Low
thing.
hum.
Any other public comments, open to public comments, any others? Yes,
Lisa Moore, to 6 Clubhouse. I appreciate what you're saying as far as getting something rather than having nothing. That's good. How hard is it to do an amendment later on? Is that a difficult thing to do? If we find there's something that needs to be addressed.
I'm sorry.
We have to go through the same process, so we would have to come before the board, there'd have to be a public hearing, public notice, and then a vote
And then
So
it
that'd be
would go
like
to
what,
the
2 months process ish.
at the earliest.
So you wanna cover any loopholes that are there, they're important enough. Address them now rather than later.
Right now, we have nothing on the books, so should something come in, it would have to get approved because we have nothing stopping it.
Okay, so something better than.
Correct.
yes.
And as we discussed last meeting as well, being exclusionary or too restrictive is also bad in a legal standing if a corporation comes in. And I can't address that importance anymore. It wasn't with this municipality, but with another municipality, we were dealing with windmills and solar panels. When that was a big thing going on.
Yes.
And it was the exact same thing, and there was a number of municipalities here in Michigan. That were taken to litigation and they were forced to allow them in there. And didn't have a say in any restrictions or anything. And there were a couple that were also in court over having, not just exclusionary, but too restrictive. And so we have to.
we have to have this funny balance, you know, and I assure you guys, I can't speak for everybody, but we're doing our best, you know, like, I don't want that here either. You know, our intention is not to make it easy for them to come in, but our intention is to, you know, restrict it as much as we can legally without it being a bad thing on us and us being forced to not have that done. And that's why we're trying to push this to get on the books. Because currently we have no legal standing unless there is something in zoning.
It already looks like we're in the world when you drive it in at night.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, where's HTV?
The same.
Just to help put your mind at ease a little bit too, there's only one spot in all of Lake Isabella that's currently zoned industrial, which is the only place we would even allow the small data centers. Guess what? We own that. The village owns that. The Department of Transportation building, the 14 acres. That's the only place that's even currently zoned that you could even do a data center right now. And I know dang well as we own it, we're not gonna let it go, obviously. So just, I wanna help put at ease that this isn't something that's gonna happen tomorrow or whatever, but we need to be proactive and get in front of this and get something in place so we don't have to deal with it. So, thank you.
You just said it's the only place that's zoned where they could put a data center, so obviously we don't have too restrictive of ordinances to allow a data center over there, that we have to push something through that is not ready to be pushed through yet, that is not strict enough. I know we cannot, he used the right word, but I can't think of it. We can't restrict them for being here, or be too restrictive on our zoning that they're not even allowed in here. But there can be some harsher financial penalties or financial support from somebody that does want to put a data center in here. You want more money for the village. Just like we were talking about the data center. If they want to come in here, should pay for the fire department, whichever one it is, to get the training and stuff. It shouldn't come from the taxpayers in the area. And as far as the not having more area, there is property around Drew Road, and we've gone through this 1,000 times. You guys could just recommend to the board or the council that you rezone the area, and the council could get together and they could have a vote. And they could say, okay, we're gonna rezone the area, and they can do it. And don't have to tell us anything about it. And you can rezone it, you could make that industrial over there. And then you're right by people's houses, putting a building in over there. There's enough properties. You say that they have to be at least 5 acres. If I buy 5 lots over here, like I have, I could put them all together on one tax.
You
Right.
can actually put them together, but it does say in the ordinance that it is not allowed because you're not allowed to do a multi-parcel in order to get your 5 acres. It says it right in there,
But if you
multi-parcel.
combine them all on one tax bill, is it not one parcel?
No,
No.
It
it
doesn't
is
change your
always
tax bill.
legally gonna be lots 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 of Lake Isabella North. They are platted lots. Doesn't matter if you combine them, your legal description will always be Lake Isabella North, lots 1, 2, 3, and 4.
When I had lots, and maybe that's because of the ordinance you put in over there. When I had acreage where I used to live, I put the acreage together with the acreage the house was
That's
on. It
meets and
became
bounds.
one tax.
Yep, that's
bill.
meets and bounds.
area.
That's not a platted area.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
You're
Oh, the other thing was this housing thing, we could hardly hear any of it, but I did hear something about it wouldn't cost any taxes for the village or the county or the township or anything like that. But to me, it sounds like it comes from a fund of the state of Michigan, which is there for taxpayer money.
For the housing TIF piece?
Yes.
No, so there's no upfront funding associated with that. The developer is the one that has to incur all of the costs, and then the property taxes go up naturally because there's a new development on that. And then a portion of those can be reimbursed to the developer for their eligible expenditures, so there's no upfront lending of funding from either
Pardon?
the village, the state, et cetera,
But the reimbursement to
Well, to county, right?
to the developer
to the developer comes from the taxpayer money.
comes only from the taxes generated on that specific property that they are developing, not from everybody's properties.
It's a partial recapture of the increased taxes due to the development.
That goes to the developer.
Yes, only the.
Only the partial that they are.
Increase,
So like,
so no upfront money is done.
We only have the
What's-
project that they're completing, so it's not like,
So it's money that they paid in originally in their taxes.
They get a,
They get a refund of that, which. And it's only from their money
Right.
that they paid in on their rising taxes, not from properties around them.
correct, yes,
Yeah.
only on theirs.
That little
Yeah.
sheet, that you gave us, is
Yeah.
perfect.
Oh, yeah,
And it shows if you have $100,000 value, taxable value lot, and let's say a developer comes in, now that lot becomes worth $1.1 million. The taxes they collect goes on the taxable value of that now $1.1 million lot. It doesn't come out of anybody else's pocket, only the person who currently owns that property. So, am I correct?
that's
Okay,
correct,
okay.
yes.
Okay, I do have a question. I know, I hate, it's, my name is Charles Osborne, and I'm at 1032 Protest. This is one thing I'm kind of concerned about. We're talking about the housing changes, the lots and stuff. I own a house that's still considered mobile home, even so in 1990s, they turned that a single wide home into a house. If my place burns down tomorrow, all I get is $80,000 for it, and I can only buy something, another mobile home for it. Will I be restricted from putting another mobile home here, or would mobile home be
we
left?
already have an ordinance in place that will allow you to replace a single wide home with another single wide home.
Okay,
Not more than 10 years old, right?
that's what I was concerned about, because like I said, I mean, I can get double wide for under 80,000 from a brand new, almost brand new, but the problem is. I couldn't afford a modular home or any of these double wide brand new mobile homes, they're like $250,000, it's just like, why? It's just you build it on a plant, you don't build it on a property, it's not a house, it's a.
Nope. That's already been taken care of a couple years ago for that specific reason.
Good, that's what I wanna know, thank
Yeah.
you.
And then going back to a couple things that was said from Mike, when we rezone, we do have to notify everybody when we're rezoning, just, I mean, we can't just rezone it and not tell anybody that we're rezoning it, number one. That's a big one. The lots up on Drew Road, I mean, I know we already addressed it about combining the properties into one. I know we're not doing it, but we also have already put those lots in our brownfield, which is what they discussed. So I just wanted to clarify a couple of those things.
Okay. The only thing I have to say to that, Jessica, is that.
Oh, I have one more, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You had also said, you know, it's so easy, it's only included in one place, why rush it through? Because right now it's included everywhere. Until we have this in place, when we have this ordinance in place, then it's only in the industrial. If we have nothing in place,
Right.
it can go anywhere.
Well, how difficult is it to edit those few changes? It can't be that difficult to edit the changes that are required.
We actually.
It's
do
not
it.
what our attorney suggested.
Maybe he did.
So,
Again,
you know, then that's why it's gonna go to council. So you're more than welcome to come there and come to that public hearing and or, you know, submit, if you can't make it, submit your comments to the council so that they can hear them.
There's also a process that has to be done, right? So when they were saying that if we run this through. And then if we wanted to amend it or something, that it's gonna take so long, you know, the steps that you gotta take. Just like tonight, if we were to change something,
so that's looking the lawyer.
you're talking. Well, it's
Right.
already went through the lawyer, so now
So
you're
that's the-
through them steps again.
Right.
And now you're talking more time.
Yeah.
Possibly the same amount of time as it is to amend it later,
Right.
that it
So you
really,
wanna put something in place like
Yes.
as previously stated.
yeah, as I stated, it gives us a legal standing, right now we have none,
Right,
you know, because there's nothing on the books that, you know,
right.
is
So
pro or con
basically
for,
resetting everything.
for that.
If
So,
you try to make.
you know,
Yeah.
We did the same kind of thing when we first had the turbines and then the, solar power stuff. We got an ordinance, got it in place, got it in there so that we banned it or didn't allow any of that stuff unless you met certain circumstances anywhere in the village. Then, once that was in place, if we need to come back and tweak it, we can, but at least we've got something in place that stops it 99% of it or whatever right away. And then if we need to tweak it, that's what I was trying to make the same point with this. Let's get something in place. It may not be perfect, but we can come back and amend it with more stuff if we need to, so. But at least we'll have something in place.
Now, thank you.
Yeah, give us the understanding.
With my bad short-term memory. You said that, what was it again? The first thing you said, I'm serious.
Read your mind, you know.
The first thing
The other way around.
that I know that
The multi.
you don't have to let anybody know.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I guess that is a misstatement. We don't vote on it. You guys vote on it. Yes, you'll let us know, but it's still gonna be the council that makes the decision. It's not gonna. You'll have a public hearing and we'll talk about it, and it's still the council's decision to vote on it or not. It's not our decision to vote on whether you rezone something or not.
Very true, because you vote those people in to do that for you, and that is
We have a hand
stated
up
by
in the
the
back there.
state of Michigan.
Right.
Smile your
Please,
face.
please say your name and address.
Nicole, 1070 Bundy, AICP planner. I've talked ad nauseam about the process in this room. You should all know it. I taught you well. But I would point out that any zoning ordinance adopted in the state of Michigan, the Zoning Enabling Act allows for the right to referendum by the residents. If they're unhappy with that, they can get a petition and they can force a vote on it. So the feeling of powerlessness is completely moot in this case, in my opinion, because they can always force a vote if they have enough people to agree with it.
Yeah. And we don't tell you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
The other thing is, a lot of times, stuff happens and I'm like, what the? And, oh, well, we told you, yeah, maybe something on a website,
Which we.
or maybe a newspaper that I never saw. So that's the other thing, is that, you know, stuff happens like that. So,
In regards to that, and I don't mean this to sound snide toward you, we and the council have had many conversations about this. We put the information out there where it's readily available for you.
Where?
Go to our website.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Everything we
I don't
discussed.
get on my computer. to go to-
Well, I know.
That's not our fault. No, but I mean, we're working.
Yeah, hear me out for a minute though. How else can we
Mailings,
ensure
Mailings.
Do you know-
The reason we found out about
that,
this.
you know what the cost of that is and the time that takes? You know, and again, this is not meant to be snide. That's why we always tell people, even when there's, chaos going on when you guys here. I personally, on this commission and on the council, love having people here. Because if we don't hear from you guys and are able to talk to you guys, well, how are we supposed to know what you guys want to represent you?
Or build an email database.
Well, that's kind of what that website is, I mean, seriously.
It's not, you have to physically go there, you don't know if anything's changed, I gotta check it weekly, I mean.
Well, I mean.
Our meetings are the same every month, and our agendas are posted inside the building and outside the building. So if you just, anytime you're driving by and you swing by, even after hours, you can just look and see if there's something on the agenda that you want to talk about. You can call and ask us, hey, what is this about?
But the majority of people don't do that, I guess, my point. But I understand what you're saying, it's.
I mean-
Citizens' responsibility to do.
And because there's
Once again,
literally
listen,
just, there's two of us in the office and that's it.
The village's website has the e-notify option, so anytime the minutes page
That's why I say.
is updated, you will get a text or an
That's what I
email.
was saying, it is on the website that you.
Like, all you gotta do is just give the email to the website, you'll get notified.
Alright, there you go.
You should promote that.
Any other comments?
I did have a few more. First I wanted to state that we did review the proposal, the current draft. And all of our comments that we made tonight were reflected in that. I think it was kind of insinuated that what we brought up was in there, and that's everything that's in the comment in our letter, we meticulously went through and made sure that we weren't mistaken and making incorrect comments. I understand also, the need that you guys need to rush this through, to protect us and the corporate lawyers are just sitting right out there looking everywhere. You see it happening all across the state and our country, it's scary. You know, these things are going in and people are voting them out. But the corporate lawyers are finding big loopholes. Just little tiny things and they're coming in and you can look at what happened in Saline Township. Regarding that, the last meeting, it was brought up that you guys looked at Saline Township and you know, like you need to get this done quickly, pass it, because what happened there is the lawyers came in, they looked and they seen, oh, they're being exclusatory. And boom, boom, the next thing you know, the people's vote got thrown out the window. The problem with that scenario is that looking at Saline Township and looking at here is not apples to apples. From what I might be wrong, but what I've researched about that incident is that they made a big mistake. And the council went ahead and they made all of this, the whole entire area zoned residential, because they thought that would keep out a data center. So when the lawyers seen that, they went to the judge and that's what they did. They asked him to order that they were being exclusatory, and so when that happened, they swiped right in, and then it was just all over at that point. It's a tragedy what happened there.
Yeah.
The difference here is we already have properties that have industrial. The BV.
But that's just it. That's only if this ordinance gets approved.
I thought it's already.
It's zoned industrial, but right now we don't have data center in our zoning ordinance at all, which means a data center can come in anywhere. When this gets approved, it says a data center can only go in the industrial area, which then identifies that one area in the village.
So what you're saying is you don't mind if one goes over there.
No.
No, we don't.
I'm saying we need to put that in there so that we're not exclusionary like Saline.
Yeah, put that in there, but what I'm trying to say is talk about what I was saying there.
But it's
Your ability to rush it,
No.
you wanna rush it does not hold weight, I believe.
I think we're gonna have to agree to disagree because you're not understanding the point that we're trying to make, and I'm not certain if you're not understanding it because you don't want to, or if you're not understanding it because you're not seeing the bigger picture. If we don't, right now, we don't have anything in place. Doesn't matter if we're zoned residential here, industrial there. The law is pretty clear when it says, if it's not in your ordinance, then it's considered permissible.
I do understand that, which brings me to the last thing, if you need to listen to my whole comment.
No, because you said it only matters if it's industrial, so we're allowing it
I
industrial.
was talking in reference to what happened in Saline and how that happened. I wasn't talking about what you guys are
But that's
talking.
what I'm saying. They had an ordinance in place. We don't even have one in place.
No, they didn't. All they had was, what they had is just nothing, and that they had everything zoned residential. They didn't have an
I
ordinance.
think they did an exclusionary.
It was, and that's what we're
That's
trying
It was exclusionary the way they had it.
Not just that, like Jessica just said. If there's nothing on the books that says that this can only, hear me out, please, okay? If there's nothing on the books, which we have nothing on the books, but more specifically, if there's nothing in the books that say that this is limited to only industrial areas, that's the big mistake they made.
Okay.
That's what this is, what we're doing is we're trying to get ourselves a legal standing and protect us as much as we can now. Now, as much as exclusionary is bad, being over restrictive, and a lot of the stuff that you guys are saying, the 2 mile radius, I understand. And again, let me reiterate, I don't want them here in our community personally either. Okay, so, and I'm saying that up front. I'm not advocating for them, or anything like that. But if we make it also too restrictive, you put all these restrictions and stuff that basically makes it exclusionary, that's bad too. And that's why I said it's a funny little dance that you have to find that happy medium to where you're not saying you can't come here, but like if our community doesn't want it, we have to make it restrictive enough to discourage them from here, but not too restrictive to where it basically may as well be excluded.
Okay.
Both are going to do the village well in a court case if it ever came to that.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
What I was trying to get at, my last point is that I understand all that. But there is an option that we're not talking about, and maybe I don't know how this works. I don't know enough about the government and the way the council works. But I know a lot of communities are going ahead, and what they're doing is they cannot quickly do this. is it hard, no, I'm not supposed to ask questions, only make comments, but is it is it hard process to just temporarily pause right now? Because there is so many questions about this and what, let the community actually talk about it first, and let their concerns be known in a public hearing. And then then you have more stuff to, like, maybe good ideas from the community. So right now, just put together a 365-day temporary pause, a moratorium. And just be done with it, and then does that protect the village then? I know that other
What happens
communities are
during
doing
that
it, and I
process?
know that the state of Michigan right now, Senator Jim Runsfeld has got something on the floor, a proposal for the whole entire state.
Mhm.
He wants to pass.
So right now, when you put a moratorium in, which would come from the council,
Right.
you have to be actively working towards a goal. Since we started this back in February, to put a moratorium in now, somebody could come in and probably use that against us in court, because we've already been working on it
Okay,
for almost a year. We've already had our first public hearing on it at the planning commission. We've already sent it through our attorney, and we've already made the motion tonight to send it to council. So we couldn't they can't put a moratorium on it tonight.
they could, but you're saying it wouldn't be wise because
Right.
of the.
It wouldn't be
Fine.
wise, but they've already made the motion to send it to council for their review. Like, so now it's out of planning commission's hands. It's going to the council, who actually makes the actual vote.
Was it
seconded?
I didn't.
Yep,
Okay. Alright.
so
Thank
And
you.
voted on.
I'm trying to learn this, like, there's so much I don't know about it myself.
and I
the planning
understand.
commission does all of the work. Gets it ready as far as they can take it.
Yeah.
And then they suggest it to the council.
Okay.
Council's going to get it, they're gonna review it. They can make changes as well prior to introducing it for their public hearing. Once they get it how they want it, then they'll have a public hearing, just like the planning
Right.
commission did. Everybody will be able to come and voice their concerns at that time if they have any. And then that night, the council can either choose to act on it that night, or they can send it for further review. In which case, if they do more review after the public hearing, they will then have to have another public hearing. To, I believe, change it.
So there's
Am I
still-
correct on that, Tim? At the council, okay. Yeah.
So there's still plenty of time for the public to
Yes.
comment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you for clarifying all this. and
Thank you
being
very
patient
much.
with me. I appreciate it, thanks.
Should get it ready, Dina.
Any other comments?
I just read that, you said something about, we should also go down to Isabel County and complain to them about it too, basically.
Certainly, there's, as far as the actual data centers. And I appreciate your guys' passion, I really do, and I respect the legwork you're putting in and educating yourself on it and stuff. And none of us are pros in this area either. You know, I've been doing a little bit of research, and it's something that I'm actually going to bring up at the council meeting if we are concerned about it. There are restrictions we put. The big one that I've been hearing from most everybody is the water consumption and pollution. There's a lot of other things, but that's like the big things, especially being on the lake here. Some of these facilities can use hundreds of thousands of gallons of water a day, which is no bueno for a small lake community. But there are other facility options. There are closed systems that only require a certain amount of water at the beginning, or they don't even use water, you know. And then there's air cooled systems. You know, that could be something that we could consider for a restriction, so that if we do end up having to have one or something, you know, and that's not exclusionary. That's just, you know, protecting our water, you know.
And that is one of the things that we put in the letter, is that maybe our ordinance should state that it
Right.
has to be a closed
Yeah.
loop system or
Right,
air.
that is something I am going to bring up if it's a continued, you know, discussion. This is just trying to move forward so that we can actually do something with it. You know, our intentions are not to just, you know, oh, we don't care what you're saying, no, and I know on your end of the table, on your side of the table, it can feel like that. You know, I can't speak for everybody, but again, for myself, that's not my intention, and I don't believe it's any of the other people's intentions either. You know, and I personally, and it sounds crazy, but I'm sitting here and you're gonna see me next week at the next meeting. I'm, you know, I don't agree with, you know, a lot of the governmental aspects. A little bit of a conspiracy theorist, but that's partially why I got involved, because I can keep educated and know what's going on, at least in my community, in doing this. I've voted many times on stuff that I personally don't agree with, but, you know, people from the community that's what they want. So I'm not gonna vote how I want because I think that's how it's done. My job is to, you know, represent, you know, the majority of the community. That's why I said, as much as it can be chaotic and people get heated and stuff, I am a huge fan of hearing from everybody. You know, because otherwise I don't know what you guys want, you know, and there are times that I just kind of have to guess and think about what's best for, you know, the community. But I would definitely love to know what you wanted, you know. I wish we could have a vote on everything so that it's just a, you know, a majority rule. You can't, you know. That's, believe it or not, that's illegal. Which sounds crazy and absurd, but I mean, it is. Like I said, it's a funny dance.
All right, we need to cut you off a little bit there. We all agree with you 100%.
Well, I'm just trying
So
to put some of that at ease.
Any other member comments? Then the meeting's adjourned.